everyone who's watching the first ever Watch Out My Children Caribbean rally, virtual rally. And I'm already seeing people are logged on. And I'm Marcia Weekes, and I'm the host of the Marcia Weekes Show. Most of you, well, some of you might know of the Marcia Weekes Show. Some of my friends in Trinidad who are watching, you normally watch the Marcia Weekes Show. I was there in Trinidad with you. And I see there's some people logged on from different countries. I would love to know exactly where you're logged on from tonight. As I said, this is a Watch Out My Children Caribbean virtual rally. And Watch Out My Children really is a movement that started in Barbados, and it's really catching on throughout the entire region. And because you see, there is something that concerns all of us. There's something that is uniting us in the Caribbean, and it's so good when we can be united. I see people are on from Bahamas. It's so good when the Caribbean can come together. And so we have come together concerning our children. This is all about our children tonight, guys. I like to say it like this: there's a war on, and the children bring us together, because we're looking at what's happening in the world, what's happening in Europe, what's happening in the US, what's happening in Canada. And we're seeing little semblances of it and rustlings of it trying to happen here in the Caribbean region. And what is it we're seeing happening? We're seeing our children. We're seeing children who are being taught, sex education that is way above their years. 3-year-olds, 4-year-olds, 5-year-olds. I saw a video of a 10-year-old being taught, in a book about masturbation. I read a little book this morning called I think it's called My Teddy Bear, where there is a teddy bear that has transitioned from a boy to a girl. And so we're seeing those kinds of influences in education curriculums in various parts of the world, and are very, very concerned about whether or not we're going to see those kinds of things here in the Caribbean. We're seeing that transgender education, where they're teaching our children that gender fluidity is normal and it's scientific, and that they don't know exactly who they are, and they can choose their pronouns. And these are the things that we're seeing. At the moment, we're seeing Kamala Harris is in Bahamas. I see people from Bahamas. Kamala Harris is in Bahamas and meeting with the officials, and Caribbean leaders actually. And we have to wonder, is that, what is this all about? Is it only about the climate change? What's happening? And so we have our own little summit here tonight. And this summit, we're going to be talking about what's happening in our various islands. What's happening in Bahamas, what's happening in Trinidad, what's happening in Jamaica concerning our children and this transgender education. We want to know what's happening in each country. And, we also want to encourage Barbados, because we have a special case here. I like to say Barbados is right there on the tip. We're right there. We're right there. It's like they put us, we're the guinea pig. And they're trying out a lot of things on us. And I love the feeling that our brothers and sisters are coming on tonight to bring encouragement to Barbados, because we have a huge rally that's coming off, a march and rally that's coming off on Saturday. And so our brothers and sisters, they have come on tonight to encourage us. So, I'm going to ask you guys to share. I need you to share. I need you to share. I need you to let people know that we are on. Quick, just take a minute and share, everybody. If you could do that, that would be really, really great. Tonight, we have several speakers from the various parts of the Caribbean. We have Reverend Ricardo Lees from Bahamas, Umar Abdullah from Trinidad, Cassius Stuart from Bahamas, Ferdinand Nicholls, I'm sorry, from Barbados. Okay, and they, as I said, they're going to tell us a bit of what's happening in the countries, in each country, and send a word of encouragement to Barbados, because we want to make sure that we're strong over here. And I believe that if they fail here, Nisha Philip from Trinidad, hello, welcome. Harriet Mercier from the Gambia, hi Harriet. And Ginger Jenkins from Bahamas, hello. Nisha Philip, right? I welcome Nisha. Anika Hope. Guys, please share. This is important. Tonight we are talking about what we see is happening with this transgender education right across Europe, across Canada, across the US, and they're trying to penetrate the Caribbean. They're trying to find themselves here in the Caribbean. And we have come together tonight to talk about what is happening in our different islands and to provide support for Barbados, that for some reason they have chosen Barbados as a guinea pig. All right, so tonight I have with me Reverend Ricardo Lees, and I know he's somewhere, is in the green room, he's right there. And I just want to read a little bit about this powerful man of God before me. He's a preacher. He's a youth development specialist, a guidance counselor at Kingsway Academy. That's just a lot of things. And he loves helping people. He's involved in graphic design and digital marketing. Reverend Lees, welcome. It's great to have you here at the first Caribbean Watch Out My Children. Welcome, sir.
Yes, ma'am. It's good to be here.
Yes, and what's happening there in Bahamas? Can you tell us a little bit of what's going on as it relates to transgender education, the comprehensive sexuality education? Have they rolled that out yet in Bahamas?
In the Bahamas, we're faced with a similar situation, and in our country, it hasn't get to our schools as yet. But we are faced with the situation in terms of trying to stop them from infiltrating our schools. They have Gay Pride Month, I think the month of June. They raise their flag. We have them trying to march, and they have various activities that they're trying to do. And so in our country, we have those folks who are trying to rally up. We're trying to represent God in our country, because as we look around the world, we have a lot of people, they have done away with God. We look in America, they took prayer out of schools, they took the Bible out of schools, and we're trying to make God relevant in our country once again. And so in our country, we have the elites that try to do away with God, the politicians that try to please everyone. So we're faced with a similar situation, but we have those folks who are trying to rally behind those fundamentals of the faith.
Yes. You said something that in the US that they've taken prayer out of the schools.
Yes, ma'am.
And, in the Caribbean, when we think of Bahamas, we think of Bahamas as the Caribbean island that is closest to America.
Yes, ma'am.
And that not just proximity, but also in terms of culture and way of life and so on. Do you have prayer in your school in the Bahamas?
Yes, ma'am. We do have prayer in the schools. They haven't taken prayer and the Bible out of schools. We have the opportunity to pray. We have an opportunity to recognize God, because we do espouse the Christian values. We do believe that we are a Christian nation. Now, there are those inside our country that try to make the Bible irrelevant. There are those in the news media, and they try to do away with Christian principles. And that bothers me strongly. But at the same time, we have those preachers, we have those pastors, we have those churches, we have men like Cassius Stuart and other men, especially my church here at Liberty Baptist Church. We try our best to represent God in our communities, in the schools, and in various places.
Mm-hmm. And I know that Kamala Harris is there right now in the Bahamas. I'm curious to know what's the climate on the ground, especially for those who are concerned about the transgender education being brought to the school curriculum in the Caribbean. And I mean, they're meeting in Bahamas. What's happening among those people who are concerned about that kind of thing?
Those people who are concerned, I know Cassius Stuart, he has a rally that is coming up on June 24th. and we have a lot of folks behind him in terms of the organization that he started. I just recently joined it with Miss Jenkins, and we're trying our best to represent those principles, those godly principles. And we understand there are only two genders. We understand that they're trying to change a lot of things, but there are folks who hold firm to that there's one man, one woman, male and female. There's no cis man. There's none of those things. We have those who believe in godly principles. And mind you, we don't shun those folks who are affected by the homosexual agenda. And because we understand God is a God of love, but he's also a God of order, and he's a God of principles. And so we understand those things. And so we do welcome them if they need help. But at the same time, we will stand up against that stuff because we don't want our children consuming that information because it would affect their minds.
Yes, and you're saying there been any attempts in Bahamas to introduce that to any schools, whether private or public?
We haven't heard it on the media. Now, I'm pretty sure they're probably trying to get it in our public schools, but we haven't heard it as concrete information.
Yes. Okay. Okay, but you're preparing. What I love about you is and you guys are so strong. We get a lot of energy and strength when we hear Cassius. You know, people are like, yes, somebody else in the Caribbean, and that's why a lot of people wanted to come on to hear him, because I'm telling you, it builds up people, you know, and it encourages us, because we are here and we're seeing, you know, I'm sure you'd have heard about the questionnaire that was presented to our children here in Barbados back in October, that we're asking them about their gender and about which, you know, what gender they prefer, you know, what gender they prefer and they're most comfortable with, and all these kinds of things. And this happened in Barbados and Belize based on my research. So you are hearing this. When you hear of this happening in Barbados, what goes through your mind?
It's a sad situation. I'll be honest with you, Ms. Weekes. It is a sad situation, because who would have ever thought we've reached to the place where we're trying to teach children that they can choose something outside of their gender that God has designed them to be. And it's a plan of the enemy. It's a plan of the devil. And the devil wants to consume, and he wants to infiltrate and destroy our young people, because they're the next future wives, the future husbands. They're the next future leaders of our country. And I honestly believe that we need to grab a hold of them. And we need not only just pray over them, but we need to teach them what are the fundamentals.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. You know, I want to ask you, what would you say? What if you are here in Barbados with us right now, and to the Barbadians who are watching, I see, if you're watching from Barbados, let me see, guys, who are those watching from Barbados? If you're watching from Barbados, come on, let me see a flag. I see the Bahamas flag.
Yes, ma'am.
You mentioned a Miss Jenkins. I see a Jenkins here. Are you Ginger Jenkins from the Bahamas? Absolutely. Protect the Children organization. Wow, guys, I'm so proud of you that you're going ahead and you're starting. Don't be like us, and we're trying to now, you know, get something going, and it's up on us. So that's good. I'm seeing, wave the flag now, we're Bajan people. Yes, Ansel Ismail from Barbados. I see that broken trident there. Where the broken trident? Where my Bajan people? I'm not seeing. Yes. Mr. Lees, what would you say? What would you say, Reverend, to Barbadians tonight? How would you encourage us?
My word of encouragement to the Barbadian people would be this. I know during these times we get really emotional, and we want to have the rallies, we want to do those things, and I believe that those things are good. And I believe that those things, they do benefit. But we need to be strategic in the way we operate. Because when we look at the homosexual agenda, they're strategic. I was doing some research today and sometime last week. Their curriculum is totally strategic in how they infiltrate our young people, how they try to play on the trauma, the emotional trauma that they go through. And I want our Caribbean, I want the Barbadian people, the Bahamian people, I want us to rally together and be strategic on a macro level in terms of developing our own curriculum to combat the curriculum of the LGBTQ. not only just combat that curriculum, but we need to put God in his rightful place in terms of making God relevant in our countries again. Because if we try to believe that we can build a country without God, we're going to be in problems. We're going to be in serious problems because our countries, we need God. Not only do we need prayer, we need the Bible, but we need God to be on our side in everything that we do. We cannot build our countries without God. The Bible also teaches us that we should make no place for the devil. And I believe we've made place and we've made room for the devil in our countries. And now he has set up shop, and now we have to remove him, and now we have to kick him out. So to my Barbadian people, put God in his rightful place. Be strategic about what you're doing and make sure get the job done, because the future of our countries is basically in the hands of our young people.
Mhm.
And if gets a hold of them, it's going to be in problem.
Yes, and thank you so much, and we received that encouragement. I want you to tell us what is happening on the 24th in the Bahamas, and what's the focus of it.
The focus on the 24th, it's our children. It's the future of the Bahamas, and our focus is to rally up those Bahamian people who believe in godly principles, who not just only believe in godly principles, but those people who want to take a stand and understand that there's male and female. There's no cis male, there's no cis female. There are only two genders. The Bible says in the beginning, God created them male and female. We also want to encourage our Bahamian people not to allow the government, if the government decides to bring that inclusive curriculum in, we don't want the government to be able to have a foothold and teach our young people that. We want the government to be able to see that there are Bahamian people who take a stand against those things. And yes, if they want to do those things privately in their own personal time, they can go ahead and they can do that. But publicly, we're going to take a stand. And that rally that we have on June 24th is to take a stand against those things that they're trying to promote, because it's of the devil. We don't want the devil to consume our children. We don't want the devil to grab a hold of our children. We're faced with so many things socially, emotionally. We have TikTok grabbing a hold of their attention. And to add to it, we want to indoctrinate our children, confusing their minds about their gender and God's design. We don't want that, so we're going to take a stand. We're going to take a stand for righteousness, because God wants the people to take a stand for righteousness. Mm-hmm. And that's our goal in that rally on June 24th.
Wonderful, wonderful. And before you go, is there anything else you want to say to the Caribbean? What's your word to your final word to the Caribbean?
My final word to the Caribbean would be this. In the book of Judges, it says this: there rose a generation who knew not God. Here is why. The Bible says that the fathers failed to teach the children the works and the wonders of God. It is our duty in this generation to teach the upcoming generation about God. Now, there are many people out there who deem God to be irrelevant, that the Bible isn't relevant. We understand that that's not true, because we cannot enslave a Bible reading people. Because when the people are able to read God's word, we're able to understand what God wants. We're able to understand God's design. And to the Caribbean, let's place God where he needs to be, in his rightful place as the preeminent focus of our lives.
Mm-hmm. Thank you so much, Reverend Lees, and I hope you will stick around. We're going to bring everybody back on at the end, and in case we have any questions, and just to have a little discussion among ourselves. So I just want to thank you so much for being on with us, Reverend Lees, and we are cheering on Bahamas on the 24th. And I know you guys are keeping us in your prayers here in Barbados. Thank you so much. We feel the love. Thank you, Reverend Lees. Next up, we have Dr. Wayne West. Dr. Wayne West is a medical doctor, retired consultant, radiologist at the University Hospital of the West Indies in Mona campus. He's a retired senior lecturer in the Faculty of Medical Sciences, UWI Mona, peer-reviewed publications in the Caribbean and international journals, former head of the Department of Radiology and supervisor of the DM postgraduate program in radiology at UHWI and UWI. He's a former president of the Jamaica Association of Radiologists, presently chairman of the Jamaica Coalition for a Healthy Society, an NGO that advocates for Judeo-Christian worldview for law and public policy in Jamaica. Listen, this man, I know him from so many, many years. He's married to Doreen. I know his wife for 41 years, 3 children. I know the children. I don't know the grandchildren. He teaches in his church. He's president of Caribbean Cause. This is an NGO with members from 50 Caribbean territories that seeks to mobilize the church for defense and Judeo-Christian worldview for law and public policy throughout the Caribbean. Listen, this man is a chairman of the Issachar Foundation, organizes lectures to review laws and public policies from the Judeo-Christian worldview. This is the man that we really want to have on this program this evening, because he's totally Caribbean in all of his endeavors, all that he's involved in. So we're very, very happy to have him, and I'm looking forward to his contributions. So Dr. West, welcome to Watch Out My Children, Caribbean.
Thank you very much for having me. And just in case people who are listening are confused, I am a Trinidadian. I'm from Trinidad and Tobago, but I've lived most of my life in Jamaica, but I still have my Trinidad and Tobago accent. So if you say Jamaica, but you're here in a Trini, I'm a Trini to the bone, but I've lived in Jamaica most of my life.
Your wife, Doreen, is Jamaica.
She's Jamaican, yeah.
Okay, I see. And I you know what? I keep forgetting that you are Trini. And I know that the Trinis, yes, they're all happy. I see them in the comment section.
Yeah. Guys, well, like I say, I've lived in Jamaica most of my life, almost from the time I was a teenager. But I entered medical school as a teenager. And I just went back to Trinidad briefly and then came back to Jamaica.
Wonderful, wonderful. Yeah. You know, Dr. West, I've watched your work over the years in, just social issues. I've seen yourself and your wife. You know, your wife. She's a medical doctor, a lawyer.
She's a medical doctor as well. She's a specialist in hematology, which is blood diseases. I'm a radiologist by specialty.
Yes, and I've seen your fight in the region and in Jamaica, abortion and all those various issues. But presently, we're seeing on the world stage, we're seeing this transgender education. We're seeing the comprehensive sexuality education, where our children are being taught about gender fluidity, and and various other forms of types of sex education that seem sometimes to be so graphic, etc. I want to know, in Jamaica, what is happening on the ground in Jamaica? Can you explain to us? Is this happening within the schools in Jamaica? Are parents concerned?
There are attempts, and there have been attempts for a very long time. Like in 2012, there was an attempt to bring in what's called comprehensive sexuality education, which shows all those graphic things to the young children, because it's really trying to make them nihilistic, meaning that they must be free to do anything, and anarchists. They don't have to answer to anybody but themselves, because there is no God, as your previous guest was saying. And that's the whole agenda. You know, all these things are coming from the same root, and they have been trying to bring it into the schools in Jamaica. For example, the Canadians, the Canadian government has been working closely alongside the Jamaican government for some time, even with what's called the HFLE curriculum. You know, I think this is the HFLE curriculum, which is done in schools. And our group, the Jamaica Coalition for Healthy Society, and some other groups, we got wind of efforts to introduce that material into the school curriculum. So we immediately intervened, and the government, I tend to find that in Jamaica, the governments are quite willing to have Christians participate in their endeavors, but you got to show up. And we got in there, and we were able to make a lot of changes to the curriculum. Like I said, Canadians were in there working on the curriculum, and you know, Canada is a very secular and liberal country. So we were able to make a lot of very significant changes there, but they continue. The question here that you were concerned about in Barbados, We had a similar question here out here. We can't get the full detail of it, but they did ask some peculiar questions. So the fact of the matter is, this agenda, these various secular agenda have the same root, and they are funded by people with a lot of money. And they fund universities, they fund judiciaries. I don't know if they funded like George Soros, who is a he funds judges in the European Union. Okay, and they fund, like, they will create in a university a queer studies department. They will fund that. They will fund a professorship in the queer studies. But what they're really doing is what's called laundering ideas. In other words, they have an idea and you want to give that idea a veneer of intellectualism. So they have the money. You see, just as how Elon Musk was able to buy Twitter because he had the money, they have the money to go into universities and buy a department or put money into a department. Let's say, call it the queer department, gender studies, and then they will create a post of a professorship in that department, for example. And then when that department does research, quotation, because people have studied these things, some of that research is not really good research, but it has been rinsed through the university. So it's a statement being made by an academic that says transgenderism is normal. And because we appreciate the value of universities and the intellectual capacities and the work that universities do, we say, well, if the university says so, it must be so. But it's not true. It's a way of lying, a way of misrepresenting, a way of making ideas that are really ridiculous look academically successful. And it's being done all over the world because these people have money to do this kind of thing. And so we must understand that what we are fighting is a very well organized, very highly funded. These people are billionaires. Like I can think of one, George Soros is one, John Stryker is another. And they are funding the United Nations to do various things and so on. So you have a literal Goliath that is corrupting institutions that we would normally look towards to say, well, guide us because you are the academic expert and so and so. But no, these things are corrupted by money to produce a particular effect, and then that is filtered through the society as law, as certain legal judgments, or as teachings coming out of the academy and so on. So it's not going to go away. But I tell you what, St. Paul said, the weapons of our warfare are not of this world. They're not carnal. And in fact, our weapon is simply truth. Okay? Our weapon is truth. So, for example, many people don't know that in 1973, somewhere around that, the gay rights movement decided to put political pressure on the American Psychiatric Association to picket their meetings, break up the meetings, and there was a coordinated effort of homosexuals outside of the American Psychiatric Association and within the Psychiatric Association to remove homosexuality from the list of disorders, of psychiatric disorders. And they achieved that using a vote. Okay, so there's no scientific thing that says homosexuality is normal. No, it was a vote because of political pressure. And a similar thing is happening. The UWI started its recent gender policy. Well, that is to be expected. Why? Because the UWI gets funding from George Soros. I'm not saying that he's their major funder, but they do get funding from George Soros, who is a billionaire and who has an organization called the Open Society Foundation. And he has a whole bunch of universities that are part of his network. And the University of the West Indies is one. And in fact, George Soros funded the law department, the faculty of law of the University of the West Indies, to do a case to remove the buggery law in Belize. The faculty of law did that using an organization called URAP, okay, which is called the University Rights Advocacy Project. But that was funded by George Soros. So when you see the University of the West Indies now with its gender policy, that is to be expected because the UWI is one of George Soros's universities, as it were. They belong to the Open Society University Network organization. And they're going to do what Soros wants. So we must understand that, and we must let our people know that. And if we put pressure on the politicians, they are being funded and being put to respond to the people. It is the people who vote them in. So once we understand that, we must share it far and wide.
Yes. I'm sitting here. I have learned so much just to listen to you. Reverend Lees, just inspired us. And then you came, you took the baton and you are, you're educating, you're going a little deeper. And I figured that's how it's going to go on for the whole night. So you are saying that, I didn't know this, that the university is partly funded by George Soros, and that they were instrumental in the Buggery law being removed in Belize. Well, did you know that at the ending of 2022, I believe, that the Buggery law was removed here in Barbados, and they said that it was done outside of Barbados. So it makes me wonder if it wasn't done by the same method, because we were just in here and when we were told it was gone and that they had nothing to do with it inside, it wasn't done in Barbados. So could it be possible that it was done through the University of the West Indies and the same format as Belize? Are you familiar with that?
No, but I am not surprised that it was removed. I have no knowledge that the University of the West Indies was involved in that one the way it was involved in Belize. But I do know that the Caribbean judges, if you look at cases on LGBT matters by Caribbean judges, many of the Caribbean judges will be described as judicial activists, meaning that they put their ideological perspective on the decision. And you can, I can give you an example. In the Belize case, the Belize Constitution, which is the law that the judge was supposed to be adjudicating on. In other words, he was supposed to be interpreting what the law says. And that is the law that guides the country, the Constitution. Well, in the Constitution in Belize, it said there should be no discrimination on the basis of sex. Now, sex means male and female. The judge said, no, it shouldn't be sex. It should be sexual orientation. So he was changing the Belizean constitution. That is something that no judge should ever do. He said, no, it's not sex, it's sexual orientation. And based on that, he removed the law. So the appeal court in Belize said he should not have done that at all. They agreed that he was wrong to do so, but they upheld his decision. Now, it's interesting that the decision in Belize was never taken to the Privy Council. I have a feeling that if it were taken to the Privy Council, it would have been overturned. Because whilst most Caribbean judges, I'm not saying all of them, but if you look at the pattern of their rulings on LGBT matters, most Caribbean judges are activists. They put their ideology on it, and they are going to remove the law. So for any case I heard in Barbados, I could automatically say the judge is going to remove that law, because Caribbean judges tend to be activists that way. And so, but if you look at the cases in Cayman and Bermuda, now these are cases that went to the Privy Council after Caribbean judges ruled in favor of LGBT. And the Privy Council overturned those cases because the Privy Council holds to the law that is before them. The Privy Council shows judicial restraint. Now, the Privy Council is in Britain, so they are all pro-LGBT in their ideology. But when they are making their rulings, they confine themselves to the law that is there. So I am not surprised that a judge in Barbados removed the Buggery law. That is more than likely, almost certainly judicial activism. I expect that from a Caribbean judge. However, if those cases, like I say, in Bermuda, I'll give you a classic example. In the Cayman Islands, the Chief Justice in the Cayman Islands, the Constitution in the Cayman Islands said marriage is between a man and a woman. That's what the Constitution said. There was the people in the Cayman Islands made a law based on the Constitution to affirm that same-sex marriage is not allowed in the Cayman Islands. But a Caribbean judge, he said, no, you must have same-sex marriage. No surprise there. Typical.
Mm.
I'm not saying all Caribbean judges are like this, but I'm saying the typical judge
That's
ruling
what
on
they
these
do.
matters
But
is like
Reverend
that.
West, Dr. West, let me ask you a question. I'm listening to you, and I'm saying you're from Jamaica, and you're saying that they attempted it in Jamaica, and they're trying to come in because the Canadians are there again. My understanding is that they've given a big grant to the education in Jamaica. So what is the hope? Is there really any hope for us in the Caribbean? Do you think that we are going to be able to sidestep this thing or push it off? What does it make sense to even try? What are your thoughts?
Absolutely. Let me tell you, our defense is truth. Let me just go back to the case in Cayman. So the Caribbean judge typically will know that they're going to do, yes, you have the right to same-sex marriage. Okay. Well, the Court of Appeal actually in the Cayman Islands said that's wrong. There's no right to same-sex marriage. So there are some judges who would uphold. I'm not saying all, but the majority. And the people went to the Privy Council, and the Privy Council said there's no right to same-sex marriage because the Constitution said so. So all we need to do is to speak the truth. And if you will find that the University of the West Indies, many of our judges and some of our politicians and all these people will be on that side of the issue. But the truth is, we can push this back. And let me tell you why we will push it back. Take, for example, the Church of England, the Archbishop of Canterbury. He didn't know whether same-sex behavior was a sin. So the Anglican Church, about 2 months ago, removed him as they no longer recognize him as the head of the Anglican Church. What we are saying is that we must stand for truth. And if we stand for truth, we simply take those people who don't know, the people who don't know what a woman is. That's not true. That's a lie. So you have to organize yourself to put them aside. And the fact of the matter, just like in the Anglican Church, 85% of Anglicans know what a woman is. So if the Archbishop of Canterbury doesn't know, they chuck him aside. So he's no longer recognized as the head of the Anglican Church. And so when it's like this, there's a whole corruption of institution and people. The American Medical Association is claiming now that they don't know when a child is born, if it's a boy or a girl. Well, Christ said, I am the way, the truth, and the life. We don't have to work with that. It's a lie. When the baby is born, it is a boy. So what we say, we no longer recognize the authority of the American Medical Association, because that's what they are trying to do. They are trying to have our experts and authorities lie. And people are reluctant to say this is a lie because the authority said it's true. But even if the American Medical Association say when a child is born and they have male genitalia, it's not a boy. We, the people of the truth, must say we reject that. We will have no part in it. And you are no longer will be recognized an authority in this matter. Clean up your act and come back. And
so
basically
you're saying the people have the power to remove people in authority that are not abiding by truth. If you're not speaking truth, that's a weapon that we have. We have a vote, we have our voices, we can organize ourselves, etc. And that led me into the question I was going to ask you about. What do we do? But Dr. West, I don't want you to leave. I want you to come back on, please. I'm going to talk to Umar Abdullah, but I want you to come back on because this has just been a wealth of information. Thank you so much. And just please
welcome.
stick around. Thank you. We now have Umar Abdullah, who is going to join us, my very, 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 very good friend in Trinidad. And I'm going to ask you guys to share this live. Isn't this awesome? Isn't it great to be learning from these powerful people tonight? Reverend Lees, and then Dr. West, and here we have Muslim cleric Umar Abdullah. Isn't this amazing, guys? Can you share this live? This is going throughout all the Caribbean islands, and we're going to be airing this on Carib Vision as a recording later. But this is amazing. Umar Abdullah is a prominent Muslim cleric and passionate advocate for religious rights and freedoms. As a founder and leader of the First Wave movement, he has dedicated his life to actively supporting and defending civil and human rights. Umar's organization firmly opposes any form of political, economic, and social repression, working tirelessly to ensure that individuals are granted the freedom and equality they deserve. With a deep concern for the well-being of others, Umar also advocates for patients' rights and access to proper medical care, recognizing the importance of health care and nutrition. He tirelessly works towards promoting food security and sustainability. Umar Abdullah currently holds several key positions, including being the head of the Islamic Front. There's a name here that I wouldn't even dare try to call. He's a leader of the First Wave movement, the board member, and secretary of the Franchise Layman Outreach Hallway. These are just some of the various positions that he holds and activities that he is involved in. And tonight, I just want to heartily welcome Mr. Umar Abdullah to the very, very first Watch Out My Children Caribbean virtual rally. You are welcome, Mr. Abdullah. Okay, I'm not hearing you.
Thanks for having me, Marcia. You hear me now?
Yes, loud and clear. Loud and clear. We're hearing you. Yes, it's a pleasure. It's a pleasure having you while he fixes his microphone. And we're asking you to share the live. Share the live.
Yes, sir.
Share the live, and put up your flag. Please put up your flag. Get your questions ready, because we have these great Caribbean men are going to come back, and they are we're going to ask questions and so on. Get some questions ready. And I know I see Naeem there, and who is one of the organizers and did such a great job. He's going to help us to get the questions that we need to get, all right, that we need to ask tonight. Okay, so Umar is still setting up. Hi, Sonia from Barbados. Sonia, can you please share up the live? Please share up the live. Good night, everyone. I support this movement 100%. This is Asma Abdullah. Yes. Yeah. Welcome. Yes. So Umar, can you just tell us what it is? You're in Trinidad. I love Trinidad. Tell me what's happening in my beautiful country of Trinidad. This type of education, the comprehensive sexuality education, have they rolled that out completely? Do we have elements of it? Do they have gender fluidity education? What's happening in Trinidad?
All right. First of all, I want to pleasant greetings to all your viewers tonight. And I want to express to all your viewers and all those persons who will later on perhaps join and look at this recording, how important it is for us in the Caribbean region to get together and push back against this agenda. We've heard the other two speakers, Mr. West, went at length to describe some of the initiatives that's been used through the court system and through government agencies to introduce this evil agenda throughout the Caribbean region. And what he's saying is absolutely correct. Because in Trinidad and Tobago, we would have also had a decriminalization of the Buggery Act in Trinidad and Tobago. And that would have had a lot of discussions here in Trinidad and Tobago. The churches would have gotten involved, but it was too late when the churches got involved. Government went ahead, they passed the legislation, and there was a great, happy uproar by the LGBTQ community, the alphabet community, as we know them. And there was a lot of chaos in front of the court that particular day. I remember there was some religious leaders who actually almost had a fight with some of these individuals. So it's very much alive, the atmosphere here in Trinidad and Tobago, as it circulates around this this alphabet community, this square community. And I would have written a lot on some of the issues. Just recently, I would have written an article describing the queer community as ushering a new form of terrorism. And we have cited some of those evidence in that article as regards to that. However, just recently, a couple days ago, we would have been a part of a meeting that was held between the National PTA, which is the National Parent Teachers Association, and the Teachers Union. And they were discussing the idea of inclusivity in the schools and getting teachers to accept training and accept guidelines along this issue. But the inclusivity that they're talking about was actually children who has disabilities. But that is not the real meaning of the word inclusivity in the document which has been circulated already throughout the education system here in Trinidad and Tobago. It's a manual, the child-friendly school manual that has been distributed, and in that manual there's mention of that word inclusivity over 400 times. It's a 244-page document. And psychologically, from a psychological point of view, you can understand why there was so much repetition of that word in that document, because it's as though they want to hypnotize you with this new concept of what they term as inclusive. All right. Now, the Minister of Education would, in the earlies, when she spoke about this inclusivity, she would have mentioned the disabled children and how they wanted to make these schools all inclusive, and she spoke specifically about the disabled children. But then, as though somebody would have spoken to her about it, or the error that she would have made, the error that she would have made, and she came back around the second time, and she clarified when she said exclusivity what she meant, and she alluded right to some of the issues that we are speaking about today, which is gender dysphoria and all these things and what have you. And I would have asked a specific question in that meeting whether gender dysphoria is going to be one of the disabilities that is going to be considered in this whole scenario. Now, in this particular document, this manual, child-friendly school manual, there is a chart that appears on the document with the heading if the framework of National Child-Friendly School Standards. And under that, there's a subheading, Child-Friendly School Vision. And there are four headings coming under that, 4 dimensions, Dimension 1, Dimension 2, Dimension 3, and Dimension 4. Under Dimension 1, and I'm going to read carefully, there are 3 items under Dimension 1. And I'm going to read carefully for you all so that you all would understand the gravity of what it is we are looking at here. Now, mind you, this has already been circulated in Trinidad. Teachers have already been part of workshops and discussions and meetings regarding this inclusivity. All right. Number 1, safeguard children's equal rights. Okay. Number 2, and I want you all to read between the lines. And I want, after I'm reading this, if you all could see or pinpoint where in those 3 points they're talking about disabled children. Number 2, show respect for differences and diversity. Number 3, create gender equality in teaching and learning environments. Now we know where we're going with that. And I don't have to go down no path to explain that language with that English I just read. I don't have to do it. Everybody in this life, they have sense, and they can read between the lines and understand that there's nothing in there that spoke about or speaks to the disabled child. Nothing about it, right? So here is where we are. Now, we've had many other discussions taking place, like for instance, just recently as well, there was, which we were told of, there was another meeting that was held with the police service here in this country, um, advising police officers to use pronouns when addressing persons when they come to the police station. So that training has already started in our police service. And how I know that, because a police officer who is very Christian based called me and was very upset about it. And she spoke to me about it because she knew that the work that we were doing and so on, and the issues that we were highlighting and what have you. And she told me, this is actually what was said to them. And I told her, I said, I want a day to come when I'm going to go into a police station and for they to address me by my pronoun. They're going to have to lock me up in that police station that day. They're going to have to do it. Because these things, if we allow ourselves to be drafted into these situations, and parents more importantly, because, you know, we had two strong Christian fellows that went before me, and they alluded to the good book, the Bible. I want to also allude to some passages in the Quran and some of the sayings of the Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. And I want, and the Christians would agree with me when I say this, all of us know the story of Lot, Prophet Lot. All right, we accept him and we know him as a prophet. The Christians know the story about Prophet Lot and his wife. His wife was turned to a pillar of salt. We know the scenario surrounding that. We know why that town was destroyed, why that city was destroyed. It was destroyed because of the sexual orientation, as the judge would have misinterpreted the text. You understand? And said it's sexual orientation. Well, it's because of sexual orientation that that city and that town was destroyed. And I want to further state that if we were to look back into the history and look at the reasons why towns and cities were destroyed by Almighty God, it was because of moral decadence. It was because of the moral decadence in that society, in that community. It was never because of the technological advancement that was made in those communities. Never it was about technological advancement, as we see in the world today, where we have huge amounts of technological advancements in many countries. Some countries further than us. All right, we are now trying to play catch up and so on with some of the technology. All right, but those communities was never destroyed for that. They were destroyed because of the decay, the moral fabric of those communities. And this is what we're seeing happening here in Trinidad and Tobago and throughout the Caribbean region. And we have to stand up as one community and say no to this. And I want to make another point. When the wife of Lut, as we call him in Islam, or Lot, as the Christians would know him better, looked back and she was turned into the pillar of salt. She was not turned to the pillar of salt because she was a homosexual or she was a lesbian. No. She was not turned into a pillar of salt because of that. She turned into a pillar of salt because of her wavering, her confusion, and the confused state that she was in. Right? And this is how the devil is getting the parents to accept this foolishness in the schools and still allow their children to be participating in some of these programs. And is looking at it as nothing wrong with it. Right? We would have had recently in one of our schools where a document was distributed and parents invited to a meeting to discuss different levels of discipline that they could use in the home to discipline their children. And there were 3 different types of discipline they were talking about, right? An extreme type of discipline, a middle course, and of course, a type of discipline the parents normally would say, well, it's okay, that's all right, and so on and so forth. They alluded to that the parents must adopt the middle path. What's the middle path? If a child decides that they want to become a male and they are female, the children has to understand the child and has to accept what the child is feeling and what the child is thinking. And that parent is expected to work with that child to manage that feeling that that child is having and perhaps help that child along the path, etc., etc. This is what is being taught. This is what is being encouraged of the parents in Trinidad and Tobago. There was another issue that took place in one of our schools where a teacher would have sent out a message in a WhatsApp group telling the parents, and this is a primary school. This is not a one of those colleges. Was asked. I was asking the parents in the group that the children, some of the girl children, are developing. All right, when you're talking about 8-year-olds, 10-year-olds, and so on, they're developing and they're asking questions. And she's asking permission from the parents to discuss that development with those children. And if the parents would be in agreement, immediately, because the brother would have shown me the chat, and immediately there was a number of parents that said, no problem, okay, that's fine with me, etc., etc. Listen to the question I'm asking. So the teacher is discussing this issue with those girls. So let's say there's one of the girls in the classroom that decide, well, miss, I find there's too much in it. See, me, I can't go through that. I don't feel I want to be a girl no more. I feel I should be a boy. How is that teacher equipped to discuss or carry on that discussion after that? Or is it because that the teacher was already coached into that to discuss those issues with the children if it does come up? Is this another ploy to have these discussions into the school? And they're doing this without the presence of the parents, right? I had the dissatisfaction in dealing with my granddaughter's school just a couple of days ago, where they had issued a consent form and sent out to the parents to sign. And the event was an excursion or an educational field trip. It was quoted to be on the form. And they were taking the children to San Fernando Hill, which is one of those tourist sites here in Trinidad and Tobago, sort of an educational site. If you visit, there are a number of things that you can learn. And after that, they were taking the children to Cinema 8 in Movie Town in South Park in San Fernando to look at a movie. Now, I only learned about this over a conversation that my wife would have been having with my daughter. And I questioned them, what is the name of the movie? Because, I mean, these things would raise a red flag for me. They could not have told me the name. I inquired what was the teacher's number. I called the teacher. I spoke to the teacher. The teacher told me that the Ministry of Education has already sanctioned it. And it is okay. I told her, well, I need to know what's the name of the movie. So she found out the name of the movie and she told me the name of the movie is Fast X. It's a new installment of the franchise Fast and Furious. And we all know that Fast and Furious is a movie, including Fast X, that has a lot of suggestive material, profanity, obscene language, etc., etc. And you were going to show this movie to these children, these impressionable minds. And I question, what does that have to do with education? What does that movie have to do with education? And the teacher boasted on the telephone conversation that I had with her that she's a Christian and she would not allow this thing to happen, etc., etc. And I wrote a letter, and in the letter I asked her, "What is Christian about that?" Well, the school canceled the outing. They canceled the trip after that letter because I carbon copied the letter to the principal, also the school supervisor, the director of school supervision, and also the Ministry of Education. They couldn't deny it because I went at length in that letter and let them know that this is unacceptable and it is very disappointing what it is they have been doing.
Yeah.
All right.
I mean, this is awesome, and you know, this is what Dr. West was saying. The people of truth. When you know truth, to speak up and to let the truth be known, and that's what you actually did. And I want you to stick around because we're not finished yet, because I want you to be, to speak to Barbadians who, we are on this weekend coming up, Omar, Saturday at 10 o'clock. We are having a march and rally in Barbados for parental rights. And that's what you're talking about right now. You stood up as a parent. You had a right They shouldn't have chosen a movie that you as a grandparent or parent didn't know what it was about. And that's the thing. A lot of the parents in the region, they don't understand what their rights are. And we're going to come back on, Umar, and we're going to talk about that. But that's a great way to end, and a beautiful story with a victorious end. Hey, that's it. That's what we need. Thank you so much, Mr. Abdullah. And please stick around. Coming back. Now we're gonna move. We're gonna move on to Mr. Cassius Stuart, and his bio is giving me a warm time to open. And I'm going to try again because I want to read. I want to read the bio. So just hang on with me. And while I'm doing that, guys, oh, he's right here. But I still want. I'm trying, Mr. Stewart, because I got it open once, and I know that I can do it. I can do it. While we're waiting on that, I'm going to ask you to share, guys. This is amazing. When are we going to get all of these powerful Caribbean men in one space? Folks, we need to share. We need to share this tonight. We're talking about the education system in the Caribbean. We're looking at that wave that we're looking like a tsunami trying to come at us. This transgender education trying to come in, and to tell our boys and our girls that they can choose their gender and all these kind of things. Trying to come in on us, right? And so tonight we are discussing that. But it seems like I'm not supposed to read this bio. Listen, Mrs. Stewart, we all know you. We know you from your voice. Listen, people are playing your clips all over Barbados. I am telling you. People are playing them. They love to hear you because it's giving them strength. And, I want to thank you for being so bold. And, I can't, it's not opening up, and I'm very, very sorry.
Don't worry about that.
No disrespect to you.
No,
but,
don't worry. I'm just Cassius.
Can you tell us about Bahamas? You do a lot of work in Bahamas. So just for 2 minutes, tell us what you do in Bahamas.
Welcome, welcome, welcome everyone from the Commonwealth of the Bahamas, the place where God lives. And the reason why I am so ferocious, I am so rowdy, is because God lives in the Bahamas, and we are not going to surrender any territory to the devil, not 1 inch. And I also greet my people from Barbados, from St. Philip's, St. Michael's, my great-grandfather, Kaiser Edwards, my grandmother, Daphne Graves, my father, Clyde Eiffel. That's how I got here. So I got Bajan blood running through my veins. And I just want to let you know that I am very, very, very passionate about Barbados. I'm also passionate about my great country called Trinidad, from all of my friends in Chaguaramas, all of my friends in Maraval, in Cuba. So I have family down in Trinidad as well too. And so I represent the entire Caribbean. And the reason why we have one voice, one region, is because when I speak, I don't just speak for the Commonwealth of the Bahamas. I speak for the entire region. As a region, we must stand up for righteousness. I know they say I'm pretty dark. I'm not sure why my lighting is so bad, but y'all forgive me. But we must stand up for what is right. The rest of the world can go to hell, but the Caribbean will be a remnant. We will reject this homosexuality and lesbian agenda that they're trying to push down our throats. That is why I'm saying to every Bajan, every Trinidadian, every St. Lucian, every Jamaican, throughout the Caribbean, from east, west, north, and south, we are saying no. We are saying no to that agenda. We will not swallow it, and we will not bow down to your idols. And this is the reason why I believe that from this meeting and from the meetings to come, we're going to set up a movement, a wave that will shake the entire Caribbean region, and we will send a message to all of the LGBT, whatever the hell the people's name is, them, that we will not indoctrinate our children. You will not have our children. See, one time ago, these countries were coming and they were asking for land and territory and markets. And now they're not interested in markets, they're not interested in territory. They want our little boys and they want our little girls. They want our boys to be girls. They want to put panties on our boys, and I will not let that happen. They want our girls to be boys, and I will not let that happen. Our girls in the Caribbean will grow up to be women and wives, and our boys will grow up to be sons and fathers and husbands. That's what we want. That is the very same thing that made us strong as a region, and that is the same thing that will keep us for the next 100 years in the Caribbean region. We must stand up, Caribbean. We must not let them indoctrinate us. One time ago, we used to be their colonies. One time ago, we used to be their territory. Now we are independent. Not only independent in our territories, but independent in our thinking. This month, in the Commonwealth of the Bahamas, the United States government flew what we call the LGBT flag, and they're hosting Pride Month all over the country. I sent a letter to the U.S. Congress asking them to put an end to that, because we will not stand up for your indoctrination. Today, the Vice President of the United States came to the Bahamas, and she specifically said to somebody who was planted on the tarmac, who is a transvestite, she is here to support them. I thought you were coming to talk about climate change and talk about how do we deal with all the guns.
So hold a minute, Mr. Stuart, because I saw that clip. Actually, we have that clip. I don't know if Mr. Francis can put up the clip. It's a clip from Bahamas as a video clip, but I didn't know what was happening. So she was telling the transvestite, we're here to support you.
Exactly.
Wow, and we got it on clip.
And so I'm here to tell her that, listen, if the fellow won't be a transvestite, that on him. That will not be a part of our school curriculum. That will not be a part of our national agenda. A man and a man will never get married in the Commonwealth of the Bahamas. If they introduce that in any school in the Commonwealth of the Bahamas, there will be no schools. We will shut down every school in this country if they try to indoctrinate our children. And I told the Minister of Education, I told the Bahamas Union of Teachers President, and I told the Prime Minister, if you're all bad, you all try that. There will be no schools in the Bahamas. There will be nothing. And in fact, if they decide to create legislation, there will be no parliament. There will be none, because the people of the Bahamas will rise up and we will take back the power that we gave them. We will not subjugate our value system on the altar of Baal. We will not do that. And so we stand up, and we're asking the Caribbean to stand up. We're asking the Caribbean from the Bahamas in the north to Barbados and Trinidad in the south, stand up against this unrighteousness. America and Canada has become the seat of Satan. Yes, the seat of Satan. But the Caribbean will not be the footstool. No way, no way. We will not be the footstool of Satan.
The Vice President, again, greeting people at LPIA earlier today. And someone said, hi, Vice President, etc. And here's what she said. Cassius, after that, we're going to talk. Take a look.
Hello, how are you? It's good to be with you. Thank you for the warm welcome. Literally, right? Literally a warm welcome. Hello. How are you doing?
Fine, thank you.
All right. We're here to support you. You know that, right? Okay. Thank you. Hello.
Kamala Harris, she got to stand before God herself. Her knee must bow herself.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, I could literally hear her say, we're here to support you, to the transvestite. You know that is what she said. And oh my goodness. And but yet still they're saying that she's here to talk about the summit, about the climate change, I'm sorry. And all of these different things, but now look at that, we can clearly see that. But Mrs. Stuart, you're talking really strong, and it's really empowering listening to you, to be honest. But one could ask the question: what are we going to do in the Caribbean if we decide that we do not want this? What are we going to do with all of the grants and the aid and all the monies that we get from the WHO and the UN and IDB? What's going to happen? How are we going to survive? We could talk big, but how are we going to survive?
Listen. There was three fellas. They were Caribbean fellas. One was from Barbados, one was from Trinidad, one was from the Bahamas. They're called Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. The same problem hit them. What are you going to do if you bow down? How are you going to survive? You know what they said? The God in who we trust will keep us. But even if he don't, if he allow us to die, we will not bow down to your idol Nebuchadnezzar. And I told that to the vice president. You can keep your money. If we got to eat the grass, let's eat the grass. But we will not bow down to Baal. We will not sacrifice our children on the altar of Baal for a couple of dollars. Caribbean people, we are better than that. We know how to eat sugar cane. We know how to grow our own peas. We could grow our own garden. We don't need that garbage anyway from the north. We got to stand up. And if they come at you, we got to say, listen, keep your aid. We don't need your aid. If we got to scrum, let's do that. But we have to stand up for our principles. We are not slaves anymore. We are not your colonies anymore. We are not under your dictates anymore. We are a sovereign nation. We are a sovereign people. But we keep hiring or electing these weak leaders who keep bowing down to these colonial masters. And now we are subject to this. I want to remind the Caribbean people one thing. Homosexuals in every jurisdiction, that's fine. They can be homosexuals. But the minute we decide to legislate homosexuality, God judges the entire nation. If they want to be homosexuals, God will judge them. But the minute it becomes law, God judges the entire nation. That is why in the Bahamas, that will not be law. There will be no parliament if they try to make that law in the Bahamas. And I want the same energy in Trinidad, in St. Lucia, in Guyana, in Grenada, throughout the region. We will stand up against this indoctrination. Like I said, Canada and America has become the seed of Satan. But do not make the Caribbean its footstool. The Caribbean will not be the footstool of the devil. Never. We are people who are rooted and grounded in righteousness. And like I told her, when you come, don't fly no other flag other than the flag of the state or the flag of righteousness. That's what we fly in the Caribbean. We fly the flag of righteousness in the Bahamas. And I want Barbados to fly the same flag, Jamaica to fly the same flag. I want Trinidad to fly the same flag. We stand up for what we believe is right. And we reject any of this nonsense. They come with these fancy words for gender dysphoria. I don't call it gender dysphoria. I call it gender schizophrenia. Because if you look down and know that you have a penis and you think that's a vagina, you're schizophrenic. You're crazy. There's no other way to play around with these people. They are crazy. They are mentally insane. And they want to take our children. You cannot have our children. We're not going to surrender our children. No retreat, no surrender. We fight.
So, Mr. Stewart, what do we do? You know, I'm listening to you and I'm so inspired listening to you. But a big question, we have a few minutes before Dr. Ferdinand comes on. What do we do as a region? What are we going to do? What do you see? What are the steps? What steps are you taking in Bahamas?
What we have done is we've formed an organization called Protect the Children International. And it's an international organization because we want the entire Caribbean to be a part of that. Now, mindful, we have organizations in New York and throughout the United States who's already joined up and want to be a part of what we're doing. And so we're asking the region, let's join forces as one voice. That when we speak, we don't just speak for the Bahamas, we speak for the entire region. And so when there is a need for us to do anything as it relates to children, this transgender, the whole region will come to that aid. And so there are a lot of people who, like George Soros, who've been funding. There are a lot of people who are righteous who wants to fund us, who wants to help us. And so I'm encouraging Barbados, I'm encouraging you all to be a part of Protect the Children so that we can speak with one voice. We want to have a rally. And interesting, I talked to Umar, that the goal was to have a rally, one rally in the Caribbean on the same day in all Caribbean countries. And so that we're going to do for sure. But we want to make sure that that comes under the umbrella of one organization. We have to speak the same language. One region, one voice. One region, one voice. And that's where we need to go. But we have to show them that, listen, we are not prepared to surrender our children. That is the only thing we have. That is the future of Bajans. That is the future of Trinis. That is the future of Bahamians. The future of our nation is in our children. And they want our children, but that ain't gonna happen. And so let us join forces as one. And we're gonna show them that, listen, under this one organization called Protect the Children, we will fight in Grenada. We will fight in Aruba. We will fight in Curacao. We will fight in Borneo. We will fight throughout the region. And we will stand up for righteousness. That's what it's all about. We will not retreat and we will not surrender.
Oh my goodness. Listen, I'm so just I tell people this is going to keep going up and up and up and up. And I have to say to you, Mr. Stewart, I am so I'm here in Barbados and I'm getting that fire from you and that encouragement. Anybody else getting that encouragement from Mr. Stewart? Listen, guys, you need to share this live. Share this live within your countries. That we needed to, and this islands wide rally. I like that. One band, one sound, one beat, all over the world. Oh, I like that. One band, one sound, one beat, all
One
over
voice,
the
one
region.
region.
That is
One
us.
voice.
That is us. That is us. And as I listen to you talk, I remember Dr. Miles Monroe, who's one such a great leader that came from your country. God rest his soul. And he always say God lives in Bahamas.
That's my
And you
father.
guys are keeping up that tradition. People are saying,
Mhm.
I'm with you 100, all of 100%. So this is our first attempt at coming together, and we need to find a way to support you on the 24th.
Yes.
There is also another group in Barbados, Family Faith Fellowship, and they are having another rally. That it is an education rally that's going to happen on I believe it's on the 17th. We will let you know exactly when it's going on, so you can pray about it or find ways that if they go live you can connect with it as well. But guys, this is so beautiful. I'm going to ask you, sir, to hang around, please, because we've got to come and we're gonna bring you all back in one space and just really go at it. Guys, have your questions ready, and we're gonna hear from them again. All right. Thank you so very much, Mr. Cassius Stuart. Wasn't that awesome, guys? Oh my Lord, I just feel like I could take on the world. I feel. Listen, are you all sharing though? Are you sharing? I don't even know how many persons really watching. Folks, are you sharing this live? You've got to share the live. It's a new thing that we're doing, and you are going to make it happen, right? You make it happen. You've got to share. You've got to let people know that this is happening and this is awesome. They're having their summit there in Bahamas with Kamala Harris, and she's promising the transvestite and telling the transvestite, "Oh, we got you. We're here to, we're here to help you, right?" She says to him, we're here to help you, right?" Right? That's her mission, and it's cushioned in this climate change thing. Isn't that something else? And all of our leaders are over there with her in the Bahamas. Well, we're going to have the Reverend Dr. Nicholls. What's wrong with me? We call him Pastor Nicholls, right? But the Reverend Dr. Ferdinand Nicholls is coming on shortly, and he's an ordained minister with the Pentecostal Assemblies of the West Indies with over 40 years of Christian ministry and administrative management. He's a senior pastor of House of Freedom Barbados, Freedom Ministries Barbados, the founder and chairman of JFG International Ministries Barbados. Is appointed international governor and peace ambassador for the Academy of the Universal Global Peace USA. And he's the overseer of the House of Freedom Ministers in Tanzania, Africa, comprising of 40 assemblies. Wow, over 70 pastoral leaders and a Bible school, the African Training Bible School, training over 400 pastors with a network of churches in Malawi, Zimbabwe, Zambia, Burundi, Rwanda, and the Congo, DRC. He has spoken in numerous religious and business forums, locally, regionally, and internationally, as a motivational speaker, preacher, and soloist. Listen, let me tell you, this man could sing. And I mean, there are just so many things that he is involved in. He's married to Julia for over 41 years. Parents of 3 children, Teresa, Ryan, and Daniel, and grandparents of 6 grandchildren, Jaden, Joshua, Jonathan, Jordan, Tiana, and Leilani. Oh my goodness. And I'm so glad I read that last part because his bio is so long. But we've read that last part of His Excellency. He's also His Excellency Dr. Ferdinand Nicholls. And let me say that we are privileged to have him as one of our speakers as well at the rallies right here in Barbados. He's a very, very good friend of mine and a dear supporter of my husband and I. Everything that we're involved in, there's some part. Sometimes he might rebuke us a little bit, but he always give us a lot of support. And we just are so happy to be associated with you. Dr. Ferdy. We like to call him Dr. Ferdy. I know he doesn't mind me doing that on here. We're so happy to have you, His Excellency. Great to have you on here tonight.
Well, it's a real honor to be with you. I trust that you're hearing me okay and
Yes,
you're
we
getting
are.
good visualization. But it's an honor for me to be in such such honorable gathering of individuals from around the Caribbean. I believe that this is probably one of the best testimonies of CARICOM. And we are no longer operating within the context of just our individual countries, Barbados and Jamaica and Trinidad, but we are a region. And maybe it is the children that will move us as a region to come together. Maybe this is going to be the stimulus that moves us as Caribbean people. We haven't been able to get it done economically. We haven't even been able to get it completed, the free movement of labor and so on throughout the Caribbean. I think probably the only thing we might have been able to get done successfully was our cricket team. But even that now is in question in terms of how successful the West Indies cricket team is. But we are here together tonight to deal with some very serious matters as a region. And I say as a region because it will affect all of us. I know that very often in the past, things tend to have a genesis in Barbados and spread out to the rest of the Caribbean. But it is clear from all of the contributions so far that this is beginning to affect every single territory throughout the Caribbean. And as such, we are coming together on a commonality. And I can't think, as you were reading the end of my bio, I was thinking about my 6 grandchildren. And I've said to people before, it's one thing to be a father. It's a totally different ball game to be a grandfather. Because your children can handle life. My daughter is 40 years old. My son, first son, is 39. My other one is 30 something years old, 36. And they can handle things. But we have our grandchildren coming up now. And they are at some point in time going to get married and give birth to children. So we are going to now have great grandchildren. And I believe that this is the moment in the Caribbean where we have the opportunities to set the stage for what the future will be for our grandchildren and our great grandchildren. And so I'm honored to be a part of your session tonight, Marcia. And of course, we've known one another for so many years. And I really appreciate and support what you are doing. Now, I don't know if you want to throw some questions at me or if
No,
you.
I'm so happy that we've designed it. Naeem, who's on with me, we've designed it for you to be the last speaker.
Okay.
Because in a way, this is an encouragement to Barbados, and you are in Barbados. I know you lived in Cayman for a while. You're a Caribbean man for sure. You got the Barbados flag behind you. You're representing Barbados tonight. Can you explain to the rest of the Caribbean why we're having this march and rally in Barbados? Give us the genesis of it and the climate in Barbados at the moment.
Let me start by giving you a quotation from a pastor many, many years ago. And I believe this is something you might have heard before. First, they came for the communists, and I did not speak out because I was not a communist. Then they came for the socialists, and I did not speak out because I was not a socialist. Then they came for the trade unionists, and I did not speak out because I was not a trade unionist. Then they came for the Jews, and I did not speak out because I was not a Jew. Then they came for me, and there was no one left to speak out for me. This is why we are here tonight, a gathering as a regional grouping. And we are confronting an environment that has been driven, an agenda that is being driven, and I make no apologies for saying this, by the United States of America. Let us not fool ourselves about this. It is as clear for anyone who wishes to do the research to see how clearly it is that the United States is driving this agenda. Let me give you a few examples as I reflect back on a bill called the Equality Act that was engaged in, I think this is a couple of years ago, in the Congress by the United States Congress. And I want to read some perspectives relative to that act. The bill explicitly prohibits, and I want you to listen carefully to this, the use of the Religious Freedom Restoration Act of 1993 as basis for challenging the application or enforcement of this Equality Act. In other words, you cannot oppose the Equality Act on the basis of faith. This is setting the foundation for what is being projected across the world by the United States of America. You will have no religious defense for not knowing to the LGBTQ idol at school, at work, or in any other public accommodation. I want to drop down to what it says relative to our children. Listen carefully. It is scheduled to lead to national mandatory indoctrination by all public schools and non-religious private schools into the whole homosexual and transgender agenda from preschool on up. Since education is one of the areas impacted by the bill, it will back up every public school use of drag queens in the classroom. It will result in regular mandatory assemblies and classroom instructions that rail against the hateful and ignorant bigotry of those who do not sing the praises of unlimited sexualities, including homosexual activity and the right to determine one's own gender and even sex as being different from one's sex assigned at birth. All teachers, regardless of conscience, will be forced to promote homosexual practice and transgender identity, finding ways to brainwash children in their respective disciplines. Parents will not be able to opt their children out of such sex talks, nor will there be parental notification because it is all protected under the civil rights law. Now, not long ago here in Barbados, as I've heard mentioned already on the program, we had a comprehensive sexuality education experience in Barbados that no parents in this country knew about. And it was exposed, and when it was exposed, there was a lot of outcry concerning the content of that questionnaire that went out to our children. You can see this rooted in the Equality Act of the United States. The Equality Act of the United States forms the basis by which the UN, the European Union, and the World Health Organization are moving toward the indoctrination of children from the first preschool years, early years, primary school, as we would call it here in the Caribbean, and even before primary school, preschool years, teaching them that these different sexual positions in terms of genders, etc., are normal and acceptable, and so forth. That is what the Act establishes on a fundamental basis. If you were to look at all of the projections of the United Nations and the World Health Organization currently being played out before us, you will find all of the rhetoric expressed in the Equality Act present in everything being presented to us in terms of our Caribbean countries. It is interesting that as you read the preamble, and I just want to touch on it, as you read the preamble for the bill in Barbados, for the Child Protection Bill in Barbados, listen to how it begins. The purpose of this act shall be A, ensure compliance with 1, the United Nations Convention of the Rights of the Child, 2, the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, and 3, listen to this, all other international instruments to which Barbados is a party, with special regards to those which affords a child the necessary protection and assistance so that he can assume his eventual responsibilities within the community and for the full and harmonious development of his personality, and to grow up in a family environment imbued with happiness, love, and understanding. B, promote the welfare of a child. C, provide care and protection for the child. D, protect the child from abuse and neglect. Now, listen to this one. In determining what is in the best interest of the child, the following matters shall be taken into account: the capacity of a parent to properly discharge his parental responsibility. These are some very significant and serious expressions within this particular bill, and we've just scratched the surface of this bill. Again, if I go back to the Equality Act to which I was referring a few minutes ago, you will notice again, someone mentioned it already tonight concerning mandatory speech. Right now, as we are in this forum, you are required in Canada to call people by what they want to be called. If you violate that, you can be fined. As a matter of fact, just last week, I believe it was, or 2 weeks ago, the Canadian government passed a law forbidding conversion therapy. I want to repeat that. They passed a law forbidding conversion therapy, which means that the church fundamentally cannot preach a gospel that could result in the conversion of homosexuals, lesbians, transvestites, or anything of the sort. That is not permitted. In Canada, you could as well state it that the Bible is considered hate material, where we cannot quote from it in the defense of what our faith is. And so these are some of the international issues that are coming to bear on the Caribbean area through the UN, through the European Union. And if you reflect on all of their rhetoric, you go back to the Equality Act in the United States and you'll find exactly the wording there. Now, I also want to make the point that, you know, a couple of years ago, there was and I'm just pulling my records up. There was a representation in the United Nations by the U.S. to do with the connecting of voting to gender, something that we have never ever had to engage, and several of the countries stood up against it. Actually, let me make sure I get it correct. That particular vote was passed through the United Nations by the United States without opposition. And those persons who inevitably opposed it, several African countries, their ambassadors had to withdraw their opposition because they were threatened. And how were they threatened? They were threatened on the basis of funding. And now you asked a question a few moments ago. You know, many people can be very passionate about this matter, but inevitably, funding for our Caribbean countries is through two major international agencies, the International Monetary Fund and the World Bank, both of who are majority funded by the United States government. There was an old saying, he who pays the piper plays the tune. So that in order to get funding, you have to implement legislative adjustments within the context of your country to facilitate everything the United States is demanding. That is why Kamala Harris can say what she said on the tarmac today, because I have no doubt that in a backroom discussion with the Prime Minister of Bahamas, a threat was made to him, which he may not necessarily come forth and speak. That threat may not have been expressed as clearly as a threat, but it could have easily gone the same way Kamala Harris spoke to the president of Uganda when she spoke in Africa a couple of weeks ago. And maybe it is time for the Caribbean to take a leaf out of the book of Africa and fundamentally tell the United States to go fly a kite. Now, you raised a question concerning, okay, we have all of the passion, we have all of the excitement, and we have all of the evidences and so forth, but what are we going to do? If my mind serves me correctly, about a month or so ago, there was a CARICOM meeting. I can't remember which country it was in, but an African bank made available to the CARICOM region 1.5 billion US dollars of funding. An African bank did that. Now, I want to put to us in the Caribbean that the richest continent in the planet is Africa. As a matter of fact, if you do your research, you will discover that a major portion of millionaires live in Africa and not in other parts of the world. And so, if we don't want to do business and do funding with the United States and with the World Bank and International Monetary Fund, technically we don't need to. Recently, there was a combination of several countries which have come together to do their trade and financing without the United States, a grouping called BRICS, BRICS. What does it stand for? Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. And they are funding, they've come together to do their own funding. They're doing trade without the US dollar. This is putting the US dollar under significant pressure. They're doing economic trade. They're doing trade, barter trading between their own countries using their own currencies. This is what is occurring right now. And African countries are jumping and getting on board. Why? Because they have seen the United States, in a real sense, rape Africa, take the wealth of Africa out, and put nothing back into Africa of substance. And so Africa is waking up. And maybe the Caribbean needs to wake up and understand that we have alternative sources of funding available to us as Caribbean countries. On a personal level, I happen to know that there are thousands of philanthropic donors available in the world who will not deal with governments, but they're looking for private sector and non-governmental organizations and humanitarian organizations to pour funding into their countries. And they have expressed it that way because they have seen that very often governments are corrupt. And they're corrupt for the same reason that one of your speakers spoke about a few moments ago, in which he referenced a man by the name of George Soros, who is Hungarian and persona non grata in Hungary. Now, he's Hungarian. Why has his own country dismissed him as being a part of their country? You have to ask yourself that as a serious question. The Open Society Foundation, the gentleman that spoke earlier on your program, is funding the University of the West Indies here in Barbados. The person who runs the Open Society is George Soros. And so we can see the agenda being set. The World Economic Forum spoke publicly about the shift in the educational child perspectives as a part of the World Economic Forum policy. These are things that are before us, and that as a region, we must take a stand. And I will say this to you. In the past, America has been successful in dividing the region and ruling, because our little territories cannot sustain resistance against the United States on our own. But when we come together as a region, we can stand up and say no. And the United States is getting very concerned, even if they don't say so, because the presence in the Caribbean right now of China and China's funding of many aspects in the Caribbean. Jamaica is familiar with the funding of China. Barbados is familiar with the funding of China. Guyana has woken up her oil reserves and has created a significant economic prosperity level potential for her country. So there's a real sense in which America is beginning to lose its grip upon the Caribbean. And if there's ever a time that Caribbean countries have an opportunity to stand up together and make a decision clear and say, no, not in this region, that time is now.
Yeah. Wow, that is powerful presentation, Reverend Dr. Ferdinand Nicholls. And there's something that you said. You said many things, but this alternative funding for the Caribbean, seeking to connect more with Africa. I think that's a powerful point that you have made. And what do you think is a climate? Just take a minute while we're doing that. I'm going to ask our technical moderator or producer to put everybody back in the room, please, our producer Stephen Francis, to get everybody back in. I just want to ask you and to talk to us in the Caribbean. Those of you who are listening, tell us what's the climate at the moment. Today's Thursday, and the rally is Saturday. Will we have anybody at the rally? What are your thoughts? What do you feel is happening in the country at this moment?
Well, as I move around the country, there's no doubt in my mind that this is on the lips and on the minds of a lot of people in Barbados. I used to, many years ago, have a Latin teacher, and every time he came into my classroom to teach Latin, he would make this statement, and I never understood until a few years ago: the female of the species is fiercer than the male. And I began to understand that you can mess around with anything in a country until you touch a child. And when you touch a child, you are going to have a problem with the women.
Yep.
And when you have a problem with the women, you are going to have a problem with their men.
Yeah.
And as a result of that, you're going to have a problem with the populace.
Yeah.
All right. And that is why I believe that, there's a quotation, and I appreciate all of the contributions so much. And gentlemen, it's a real pleasure for me, a real honor for me to share with such auspicious gentlemen this platform. But there was a statement made by a gentleman many years ago, and he said this: it would be better for a millstone to be hung around your neck and you be thrown into the sea,
Yeah, and to corrupt.
than to offend one of these little children.
Absolutely.
Now, I heard mentioned tonight about Lot. I heard mentioned tonight about the judgment of God on different things. But I want to suggest to you that it is nothing compared to what he's going to do with anybody who messes with a child.
Amen.
From the horse's mouth. It came straight from the horse's mouth.
Amen.
It did not come from an apostle. It did not come from a prophet. It came straight from the horse's mouth. It would be better a millstone be put around your neck and you be dropped into the ocean than to offend one of these little children. And it is on that basis, I believe, that we're beginning to feel a sense, and I feel it, it's almost like an underground. I don't know what you're feeling in the Bahamas or what you're feeling in Trinidad or Jamaica. It's almost like an underground swell growing. It's almost like a volcano that is boiling on the inside. And just like we saw happen to, I think, Putin, not Putin, the U.S. President, a volcano, I think I have the name right, I stand to be corrected, just 50 miles south of Mexico City a couple of days ago, it blew. Sooner or later, the people of the Caribbean are going to blow.
Yeah.
They are going to say to the political leaders, enough is enough.
Enough is enough. Well, thank you so much. Doctor, thank you so much, Dr. Nicholls. Because of time, we're going to because we want to end off in the next 15 minutes. But I was hoping, I don't know if the moderators are going to be able to get some of those questions. People had questions there. If we'll be able to get some of those questions. But I want everybody here to really think about at least one final comment that you're going to make, just in case we don't have any questions. And I want you to really speak to Barbados. In Barbados here, there's something Dr. Ferdinand didn't say, but as a Jamaican living here, I'm going to bring it up. Barbados are very passionate people. People say, oh, they're so passive. They're not passive. I think what has happened is that at the moment, right now in this country, there is a real, there is a fear of victimization. We live, our community, our country, Mr. West and Mr. Stuart and Mr. Abdullah, is very small, very, very small. And we have a government with 30 all seats. And we have a leader that seems as though they loom over the entire country. and people are scared of losing their jobs. They're scared of victimization. And I have to say it because it is true. People tell me all the time, be careful. Aren't you worried? This might happen to you for speaking. They're really worried. And so, I want you to speak something into Barbados, into the life of Barbados, into the soul of Barbados tonight about that, because I don't know if it's because of that why they are coming here and using us as a guinea pig with all of these laws that they're trying to introduce. They're trying to erode our parental rights, which is one of the most important things, as Dr. Ferdinand was outlining. They do that first before they come in with the other things. And that's what they're setting to do, and that's what we're coming up against. So let's see if we have any questions. If we don't have any questions, I am going to people saying lots of information here tonight. Okay, I'm going to go right to Dr. West, because I know that that you have to leave very soon. Can you say in 2 minutes, be able to 3 minutes, because there are 4 of you here, so 3 minutes the most, be able to tell us, speak to Barbados, please.
Well, I just want to first of all, it's good to hear all these gentlemen, brothers. It's a pleasure to be here with you guys. I just want to. The gentleman who Reverend Dr. Nicholls quoted is a gentleman who I have the utmost respect for. That is Jesus himself. And I would like to tell the church, to remind the church, that Revelations 21 verse 8 says that the fearful will not enter the kingdom of God. We must be aware of that. The gospel that we have to preach is not a gospel that protects the body. We must be willing to be witnesses unto death. And we must not be fearful, because the fearful will not enter the kingdom of God. Having said that, God is not leaving us without resources. Alexander Solzhenitsyn said, when he was dealing with the communist regime, and what we are dealing with is a totalitarian regime. Yes. It's totalitarianism. Do not live by lies. We must testify to truth. A woman is an adult female human. The judges in the courts are going to lie about that. The University of the West Indies is going to lie about that. The ministry of so-and-so is going to lie about that, because they're getting money from these billionaires and so on, and they are afraid to lose their jobs as well. But we must testify to truth. A woman is an adult female human. The other thing is this. As Reverend Nicholls said, the U.S. is on a slippery slope, because the U.S. dollar was the currency for oil. So for you to get oil, you have to have U.S. dollars. But that is changing. The U.S. dollar is no longer the world's currency for oil. And more that is going to change. And probably one of the reasons it's changing is because the U.S. is going down that path. But we have alternative. BRICS is a real alternative. And BRICS have also formed a bank to help. So there is alternative. Testify to truth, and we don't have to be afraid. God is in charge. And one last thing, very quickly. It is God who is organizing this agenda. And it's going to stop, just as he said, in 400 years, the sins of the Amorites will be judged. So in a certain period of time, this thing is going to come to an end. What he is doing is sifting the hearts of men to see who is on his side.
Yes, thank you for that. So Barbadians, no need to fear. God is leading it, and I know our Muslim brother can attest to that. Yeah. And we're seeing God's hand in Barbados moving on this. With this, we're seeing it daily. Umar, you talked about as a parent, a grandparent, you were speaking about you having to speak directly to the principal of your school. What can you say to Barbadians about parental rights? How important is that?
Well, Marcia, the parents need to be more observant. They need to be attentive when it comes to their children. The Prophet of Islam once said, every child is born on fitrah. It's the Arabic term that was used. the meaning of which says every child is born straight. You're either a boy or a girl. They're born on a straight path of righteousness and sincerity, honesty, integrity. It is the parents that change them what they become. The parents. The parents have a huge responsibility to stand as a shield in front of their children, to protect their children, to protect their youth, their honesty, their purity. And if the parents do not do that, we're going to lose them. We have been clamoring, we have been talking about it, and we've been warning parents about it in Trinidad. It's sad to say, up until now, and I'm sure you're getting that sense in Barbados, you're not comfortable with the response that's coming from the parents. And I want parents to understand, and like the goodly gentleman just said, it came from the horse's mouth. It came from the horse's mouth. Let us not play games with our children. And he's correct to say that if nothing in the Caribbean could have united us up until now, let this be the only thing that is going to unite us and make us strong, that will be able to allow us to stand against the evil and the wickedness of these people, what they're trying to do in the Caribbean. And I wish in my heart, Marcia, that I would be able to come to Barbados on Saturday and fly the flag of Trinidad and Tobago and let the Caribbean region know that unity is coming, and it's coming with a vengeance. It's coming with a vengeance.
Yes.
Our children, we need to protect our children.
Yes, yes. Wow. It would be so great if you guys could come, if we can have Mr. Stuart here, Mr. Abdullah here. I mean, that would and the Bahamian flag, and let's dream, at least dream. I mean, they're making these airfares so expensive between us. But man, if anybody can come over and come with your flag, please, that would be so encouraging. I am telling you. We are under so much pressure over here. They're writing about us. They're making memes about us. They're doing all kinds of the alphabet people are working their work and trying their best to discourage the people from coming, and they're doing all kinds of different things. Mr. Stuart, oh my Lord, you've encouraged us so much already, but we want to hear your voice again. What is it that you have deep down in to say to Barbados one last time?
Barbados, the bearded one. You know, your island is a very precious island. And from your island, the people of the Barbados built the Royal Bahamas Police Force. From Barbados, you built many of the Caribbean nations. You cannot allow this virus to destroy you. This transgender foolishness is a virus that is from Satan, that is there to destroy your future. And, you know, I always say that these people are going after one thing. They're going after the image of God. Because when a man puts on a dress and puts on panties, that is distorting the image of God. When a man goes with a man, they cannot create another human life. That distorts the image of God. Everything the transgender and the LGBT community does is a disrespect to God. The rainbow that God put in the air. When God created the rainbow and he put the rainbow, he said, this is a covenant between me and every living creature on the planet. So the wasps, the roaches, the flies, the bees, the rainbow is not only a covenant between God and man, but every living creature. So when these people take that rainbow and they espouse their sin, they insult the wasps and they insult the bees. And this is why nature is groaning, because we don't only insult God, we insult everything in creation. And they understand that, you know. And this is why they come up with this hoax called climate change and carbon credits. Because what they are doing is they're violating a law, the law that Leviticus 18 says. God said to the children of Israel, when you enter the land that I'm going to give you, if you do the things they're doing, offer your children to Moloch, abortion, America abort 700,000 plus children every year. If a man lay with a man, if a woman lay with a woman, he said, if you do these things, I will curse the land and the land will spit you out. So this climate change ain't got nothing to do with you turning on your car engine. This climate change is the earth trying to spit out the humans because they're in violation of their own humanity. And so we have to be, what we're doing is we're violating natural laws. And so what we're doing is the left, this is not the Republicans who's pushing this, it's the left. The people who are pushing the LGBTQ is pushing the very same thing, climate change. In other words, get these government confused into thinking that, oh, we could stop hurricanes and we could stop this by, turning off some car engine. You cannot stop it. As long as you keep your human behavior, as long as a man go with a man and a woman go with a woman, and we offer our children on the altar of Moloch through abortion, God will curse the land and the land will spit us out. And so with that being said, we who are righteous got to keep speaking. The problem is that we become too passive. And they use words to neuter us by bullying. Oh, you cannot bully, or hatred speech and so on. We're not bullying you. We're telling you what we believe. Why are you telling me what you believe is not bullying? But when I tell you what I believe, I'm bullying you. And so we cannot surrender to them. And I told all of them, I told their communities in the Bahamas that we will not submit to y'all, we will not succumb to y'all, we will not bow to y'all. And we're not giving y'all 1 inch. We're not giving y'all no territory. We're not giving y'all no pronouns. We're not allowing you to change the dictionary, not in the Commonwealth of the Bahamas. And the very same spirit that I have, Bajans, I need y'all to stand up. Trini, I need y'all to stand up. Do not give them an inch. You speak to them, and guess what? Their bark is more than their bite, Their bark is more than their bite. And I told the US, listen, the Bahamas has a national debt of $12 billion. Most of that is owed to the US, IDB and the rest of them. Most of our tourists, 5 to 7 million tourists, come from America, right? We know that America is the most powerful nation in the world. We know that. We know that they could destroy the Bahamas and the Caribbean with one push of a button. We know that. But I tell them they might as well just push the button, but you're not going to have my children. I'm going to be right here on the beach waiting for you. Push the button. And that's how because I am not going to surrender my children to Moloch. I'm not going to surrender my children. See, because he said, be not afraid of the man who can destroy your body, but be afraid of the one who can destroy your body and your soul. Mm-hmm. So I am not, like I told Pamela Harris, she will have to bend her knees to Jesus Christ. She will have to bend her knees to the Almighty God. But listen, I am going to stand up in the land of the living whilst I'm alive, and I'm going to speak what is right. They are wrong. A man should not lay with a man. A woman should not lay with a woman. We should not teach our boys anal sex. We will not teach our little girls about masturbation. That will never happen in the Bahamas. And I told you, and I want you all to understand in Barbados, do not let that happen in Barbados. That is detestable. And the minute you embrace that type of teaching, God will judge you and God will condemn your country. Do not let that happen. Stand up for what is right. Fight that evil. Fight that injustice. I'm going to leave this. The Caribbean, let's speak with one voice, one region. America and Canada is the seat of the devil, but the Caribbean will not be its footstool.
Amen. The Caribbean will not be its footstool, and that's where we end tonight. Reverend Nicholls, what you're saying to those that are coming out? What do you have to say? You have 1 minute?
Well, what I have to say is to come prepared. This is a war. Come prepared for battle. We are not going to be violent in our protests. We are going to be emphatic. We are going to be clear. There's a saying, the only thing needed for evil men to triumph is for good men to remain silent. And we are not going to be silent. You will hear our voices. And it is often said by politicians, the voice of the people is the voice of God. Let them hear the voice of God on Saturday.
Wow. Yes, this is awesome, guys. Thank you so very much. And we needed to say that the clip that we used earlier where you saw Kamala Harris, the vice president of the U.S., shaking hands on the tarmac as she was coming into the Bahamas was from Beyond the News. And it was sent to me by one of the anchors there. And I just want to thank them because we have a camaraderie happening there. I love it. I love it. I hope I can be in Bahamas on the 24th too. to be there with you all,
We want all of you all to come. If you can come, we're gonna try and see if we can
and
set
you
up a
come
great
for
show.
Saturday. Come for Saturday.
I
We
will
just
be in
have a
Barbados.
little.
I will be in Barbados in August. I will be there in August for a week. But
Oh, really? So
yes.
let's know more about that, because even on this Sunday, I didn't get to say this, but we have the march and the rally the Saturday, and on the Sunday, the Watch Out My Children is having a training where there is a lawyer from Trinidad, Rebecca Gavaya. She's presenting an alternative sex education program, which I think is important. So we're fighting in different ways. We have something called Gen Z Connect that we want to share with you guys. We would love to see Gen Z Connect in the Bahamas and in Trinidad, where we're bringing together young people and we are teaching them about gender, and we are teaching our own sex education based on, what we believe in. And the science that we grew up knowing. So that's something that we do, and we're creating a curriculum, and we want to be able to share that with you. So
Wonderful.
That's Gen Z Connect. We want.
Hello, dear. I am a.
Yes, we were looking to show quickly a video, and it's the last one that was sent. Go ahead, please.
Hello, dear. I am Apostle Marguerite Brady Haynes from Barbados. June 10th. There'll be a great rally in Barbados. Watch our children. We will not allow the wicked agendas of government to take the rights of parents or take the rights of our children. We will stand and fight. Come out. Fight for your children by marching peacefully in Barbados. I'll be one of the speakers looking out to see you.
Yes,
Hey everyone. Watch Out My Children will be having a march on June the 10th, Saturday at 10 a.m. It'll be starting from Kensington Oval and going to Independence Square. I'm asking everyone, those of you who have children, those of you who don't have children, those of you who are uncles, aunts, grandmothers, cousins, and you're interested in the future of our nation, to come out. Show your support and come out for the children, for our future. Let's be there.
Yeah, so that's us there in Barbados. So let me just officially thank everyone for coming on. Let me thank Mr. Stuart, Mr. Abdullah, and Dr. Ferdinand Nicholls. Thank you for coming on, and I hope this will not be the last time we come together. In the next one, we need to have more Caribbean islands. We need to have Guyana on. There's a Mr. London, Nigel London, I believe, in Guyana, that's really pushing. And so, we need to bring everybody on and let this not be the last time. Let it not be the last time. Thank you, gentlemen. And thanks to our producer, Mr. Sherwin. And we want Dr. West as well, who is not here at the moment, but thank you, Dr. West. He had to leave for a meeting. And thanks to Reverend Lees, who was here earlier from the Bahamas. Thanks to Naeem from Trinidad and the First Wave Movement, who helped me to put this whole thing together. Umar, thanks to you and Naeem, and God bless you all, guys. And see you all in Barbados on Saturday. Come on over, man. Come on over, Cassius. We'll put you all up. Come on, right. Abdullah.
I will be there on the 9th. I will be there on August 9th to the 15th.
On August 9th. So we will plan around that. Okay, God great. Bless you all.
Yes.
Bye-bye.
Ding-a-ling-a-ling, school bell ring. Truth me I speak to teach the children. We ain't backing down low, we ain't moving, join the fight. Watch out my children, boom, yes, let me begin. Open your ear and start listening. I want all the powers that be hear this thing. We the people from right here in Bim, standing up for the rights now, we children. We ain't backing down, we ain't scared of them, join the fight. Show them which God we serving. It's time to unite to protect the children. Ting-a-ling-a-ling, school bell ring. Truth me I speak to teach the children. We ain't backing down low, we ain't moving, join the fight. Watch out my children.